All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Marty Bittner. I'm a member of the Energy Committee. And for those who don't know, the Energy Committee is charged with helping the town of Belmont achieve its climate goals. And I'm going to just spend 5 or so minutes here at the beginning to motivate what brought us all here tonight. So some history. So in 2009, town meeting adopted a climate action plan which called for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% below 2007 levels by 2050. And along the way, we've made progress towards this goal, but more recently, we've put finer points on exactly how we plan to get there. So in 2019, town meeting adopted the Belmont Climate Action Roadmap for Strategic Electrification. And I'll talk a bit about what that is. And then last year, town meeting passed a resolution in favor of fossil-free new construction for new buildings. So where are we at in Belmont? So here's a plot just showing the total CO2 emissions in town by year. So the first point is in 2008, and then the second one is 2015. And we'll probably do another inventory soon to add some more data to this. But the point here is if that the dotted line would be a linear progression to reach our 80% reduction goals. And the red line is showing what we've done so far. And so you can see, at this rate, we're not going to get there. And so, so we need to change some things. And that's part of what brings us here tonight. So where do our CO2 emissions come from? So this is largely residential community. So you can see our emissions come from 3 different areas, predominantly from heating our homes. So oil and natural gas heating, so that's about 43%. Next is our vehicles. So gas vehicles accounts for about 36%, and the remainder is from the electricity we all use and the generation of that electricity. So these are the three things we really want to hit on. So the climate action roadmap that was passed by town meeting it's pretty simple, and it calls for basically electrifying everything. So in the case of Belmont, the big emitters are transportation and home heating. So we'd like to electrify that as quickly and as broadly as possible. And then the second step is to make Belmont's electricity sources 100% carbon free. And we're fortunate in Belmont to have a municipal light company, Belmont Light, is a co-sponsor tonight, who is a very willing and able partner in this pursuit, and is well on their way to achieving 100% renewable power supply for Belmont. And expected to hit that metric this year. So we're some progress on the various categories that were, that are the big emitters. So for this is a plot just showing the electric vehicles in town over time, and you can see, 10 or so years ago, there's not many, if any. And over time, the proportion of electric vehicles in town has grown. And in 2020, you can see about 8% of the 2020 model years had some type of plug on it, either a fully electric vehicle, which is the blue line, or a plug-in hybrid, which is the orange line. So we're making good progress on that front. And Belmont Light folks will talk about rebates later on, but there are some rebates through Belmont Light to help with transition to EVs, as well as tax credits at the federal level and state rebates. And the Energy Committee is also helping the town to develop a roadmap for electrifying the town vehicle fleet. So we'll hope to start making progress on that soon. And the last thing I want to talk about is buildings. And so heating our buildings, as we saw before, is the biggest source of carbon emissions in town. And there's been some notable progress on town buildings and residences on this front. So you may have heard that the new Belmont Middle and High School is all electric. It uses geothermal heat pumps and will also produce its own clean energy on site once the rooftop solar panels are installed. So that's a great thing, right? Every new building in town, we hope it's just like this. We've also worked closely with the developer of the residences at Belmont. So that's the more colloquially known as the McLean project. And he is committed to an all electric design using heat pumps, which is great. The proposed new public library the design is that it be all electric using heat pumps and with solar on the roof. And then decisions like all of us have made. There was a program about 2 years ago called Heat Smart Belmont, which was a campaign to educate residents and help navigate a switch to using heat pumps to heat their homes. And that's been very successful. So to this point, it's greater than 140 residents have switched to heating with heat pumps. And then lastly, solar panels were installed on Chenery Middle School this spring. So that's the first school in town that had solar installed, and the high school will be next. So we're making progress and we just want to keep it going. Okay. So next we'll have a series of us talking about various home electrification technologies. And I'll start it off by talking about heat pumps. And so you'll see behind me, I have mini splits in my house. So about 3 years ago, we got rid of our gas furnace and steam radiators in favor of heat pumps in the house. And so we exclusively heat our home with heat pumps, and it's been wonderful. I think our peak electric bill in February was about $270, and so it's perfectly manageable, and we've been very comfortable making the switch. So so we have mini splits, and so this white thing up on the wall behind me, we have 5 of those throughout our house, and each one acts as its own zone. So I can go ahead and turn it on.
Marty, how big is your house?
So our house, it's about 2,500 square feet.
And it was built when?
1930-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just turned it on, so maybe you can see the sort of louvers opening behind me. And so the way it works is that these indoor units, they're connected to an outdoor unit, which I'll walk out and show you in a minute. And the idea is it's just exchanging heat between the inside of the house and the outside of the house. And in the winter, it's bringing heat from outside into the house, which sounds kind of weird. You know, some people think that there is no heat outside in winter because it's cold, but there is heat out there to be gotten. And in the summer, it just works in reverse. And so right now it's pulling heat from inside the house and dumping it outside. And this kind of comes in handy in these shoulder seasons, right? Like I don't know, a month or so ago, where we had like a 40-degree differential in temperatures in the week. And so we could switch between heating mode and cooling mode, you know, really easily just with you know, touch of the remote. So I'm gonna switch to my phone now and walk outside.
Thank you. All right, so I'll try that again. So I'm out in my backyard on the side of the house, and what I'm showing you here is the outdoor condenser unit that pairs with the indoor mini split that I showed you a minute ago. And so the way this works, you can see these fans spinning, and so they are taking the heat from the inside unit and then just dumping it outside. And so you can see this is connected to these refrigerant lines, so these white lines that go along the house. And so this one above the window is the one that's directly connected to that indoor mini split unit. And you can hear it, you know, it's pretty quiet. So it's, you know, doesn't bother the neighbors or anything like that. And it's up on a little stand so that in the winter, you know, the snow doesn't block the fans. that's about it. It's pretty easy, and we've been it's able to keep up in the winter for us, no problem. So it's been great. Okay,
Marty,
so
Marty, what did you have to do to your house in terms of, preparing it for this? Was there anything insulation wise or otherwise that you did before?
yeah, so I'll actually, I'm gonna walk away from my computer so I don't reverb everybody. I could show you, we have another unit in our kitchen and our dining room here. So yeah, so we redid the insulation in the house. And so that's an important consideration too, to make sure your house the building envelope is efficient. And so we had insulation blown in, and that's actually one of the first steps, is to consider your building envelope and and whether the heat pumps will work for you. But if you have decent insulation, then these things can keep up just fine.
And so it's operating as both an air conditioning unit and a heating unit, as you said earlier. So you're essentially getting two systems for one.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, and before this, for us, we didn't have air conditioning, and so sometimes people have these and they don't realize they can also do heating. But it's great, right? We don't have to haul around window air conditioner units or anything like that. We just press a remote control button to switch between heating and cooling. So simple as can be.
I've got some questions from the chat. One is, who's the manufacturer of your mini split?
So these are Mitsubishi. Yeah, and so they have a line called Hyperheat, which so if it's important to, if you want to use these for heating, it's important to get units that are rated for cold weather. So people often ask, what temperature do these work down to? And the answer is they work at 100% efficiency down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And they still work down to -15 Fahrenheit, which we rarely hit those sort of temperatures here. And in more typical temperatures in the winter, these are operating over 200% efficient. And when you could compare that to what's termed a high efficiency gas furnace, which is usually 95% efficient. And so these are double that.
How many units do you have outside?
So we have two. So the one that I showed you, the big one, that has 5 ports in it. So it actually can connect to 5 of these inside units. We only have it connected to 4 right now. We got a sort of a bigger outside unit to allow us to add a 5th one of these mini splits if we needed it. But it turns out we don't, and so it's fine. And then we have the second one is connected to a mini split that's in our attic. And so we only have those 2 because we did 2 different projects. So we installed the attic one like 6 years ago, and the rest of these we installed 3 years ago. But typically you only need 1 outdoor unit if you do it all at once.
Did you have to replace your steam radiators with the mini splits? Do heat pumps always require mini splits?
All right. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So the question was, did I have to get rid of the radiators?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't. I mean, we could have kept our gas furnace was perfectly functional. I mean, it was 6 years old. And so if we wanted to, we could have kept both systems. And some people do that. Some people like to have a backup, gas furnace or oil furnace or whatever, and then use the heat pump as sort of a supplement to reduce the heating load on a typical furnace. But for us, we had a contractor here in the house working on a big renovation. So we just got rid of the radiators and the furnace and everything. And it was nice getting rid of the radiators because it cleared up a bunch of floor space. And so it was kind of a nice knock-on effect to the whole thing.
And the second question was, do heat pumps always require mini splits?
Good question. No, they don't. Some people do ducted heat pumps. And so if you either have ductwork or if install ductwork, the heating can go through ducts rather than mini splits like this. And there's also different types of mini split units. So we have all these ones that are up high on the wall. They also have units that go lower towards the floor, which are more typical of like a radiator placement, that sort of thing.
So that's taking advantage of the ductwork. If you had central air conditioning, for example, you could dovetail into those installed infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. And Francesca had a question. She's raising her hand.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's actually her dad who had a question.
Oh,
Barry is my name, and I'm wondering if the heat pumps are compatible with homes that have hot water and are currently having that hot water heated by a boiler. Do you have to replace the entire system, or could you get a heat pump that basically substitute for a boiler?
Yeah, so I guess Roger will talk later about water heating with so he has a heat pump water heater, which is a separate unit. But you might be asking about right now. I guess presently you have your heating system is also heating your water. Is that what you're asking about?
Exactly. So, I mean, the heating system. I mean, it's a typical Belmont heating system, which is a gravity hot water. Originally, it was I'm sure a coal-fed boiler, and then it became oil, and now it's natural gas. And so the question is, can you replace that natural gas boiler with a heat pump that would heat that water that would then go to the radiators to heat the house?
Yeah,
I don't think you can
think
do
so.
that. No, they're sort of separate systems. So you can keep the hot water system and add the electric, because the heat pump is blowing air. It's not heating water.
yeah, and I think the energy load to heat the water, heat that much water is pretty high for heat pumps, and so I don't think it quite works. But
Okay.
it's worth contacting installer about it to really see your options. But as far as I know, it's not a thing.
Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, Ryan, because you had your hand up.
Yeah, back to insulation really quickly. We have a really, really old home with no insulation. Is there an optimal type of insulation to prepare for heat pumps? I've heard of like spray foam, fiberglass, dense packed cellulose. Like, is there an ideal one to create that envelope?
Yeah, so we have a mix. So most of our house is blown in cellulose, where they just cut holes in the outside, because we also had no insulation when we moved in. And so that's the bulk of our house. And then the newer bits that we renovated 3 years ago, that's blown in spray foam, that has the highest R value for insulation. So that so if you're choosing and you had the option to get that in, that I think that's the best. But blown in cellulose also should work too, because that you're basically just trying to bump the R value up of your walls, so the heat pumps can keep up. All right, great. So we have a bunch of other stuff to talk about. So I think I'll pass the baton now to.
Hey, Marty, just
yeah.
one last question. I'm just curious, did vendors, were there any in particular, and maybe just take a moment on cost of a system, and did anyone try and dissuade you? Oh, no, you don't want to rely on that. I'm just kind of curious what the, sort of the service side of the install side of the equation is, just to give a little feedback there.
Yeah, so we did this during the that Heat Smart Belmont campaign that I mentioned, and so we had vetted the installers to be people who were not going to dissuade people from heat pumps. Like I used Muirfield Mechanical, and they were great. But they've been doing this sort of thing for this is their bread and butter. Like, so they're into heat pumps. They're like Diamond certified, I think it's called, for Mitsubishi. So the warranty is a little longer, that sort of thing. But yes, I have heard horror stories of, plumbers or HVAC guys, dissuading people from going the heat pump route and saying, oh, they can't keep up in winter and all that. But, I've lived with it for 3 years and we're perfectly comfortable, haven't regretted, the decision one bit. Yeah, so it's a great question. And the cost. So for these, for all 5 units, it was around, I'd say $24,000. And that was, I think the rebates are better these days than when we did it. And we'll hear more about that towards the end from the Belmont Light side.
But that's interesting for someone who's looking at a home for the first time, for example, both, if they're looking at air conditioning and a radiator, all of a sudden, you really do have to apples to apples on what's your capital cost all in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
All right.
Marty.
Yeah, thanks. Good questions. So next we'll hear about water heating. So from 2 more energy committee members, so Roger Rubel and Klaus Becker. So Roger, you want to go first, and he'll tell us about heat pump water heater.
Sure. So I'm in my basement, and we have a heat pump water heater. And I'll just move my computer over. This is it right here. And so it's about, I'm 5'9" 3/4, so it's like about 5 feet, a little over 5 feet high. And what's the matter?
Sorry.
Oh,
My bad. My child.
Oh, I thought you were giving me instructions. And it's got a little, so the gray part is like a water tank that you would have, a conventional water tank, a heat pump on it. Now it's running right now. Can you hear the sound of it? Can you hear a hum? Anyone?
Not particularly.
No. Okay, that's interesting because I'm not muted and I'm standing right next to it. So it does make, a fan noise. It's in the house, and it needs to be in a place where it has, air around it. So you can't put a heat pump into an enclosed closet that doesn't have airflow. And it also exhausts cool, dry air. So it's acting like an air conditioner. It's taking the heat from my basement and it's putting it into the water heater to heat the water, and it's expelling cool air out the other side. So in the summer, my basement is very cool and dry. It's probably it's the coolest place in the house. And in the winter, it's kind of cold down here. So, you wouldn't want to put it in your kitchen for that reason, because it's going to cool your kitchen during the winter. It has a little control panel here that I'll turn on, and it shows that it's set, you probably can't see that, but it's set for 126 degrees. And it gives you a choice of running it just with the heat pump, and resistance heaters inside, just on electric with resistant heaters, or it turns it down on vacation. And it allows you to set how many days you want to keep it on vacation before it turns back on again. So that works pretty well. And so this cost me $2,600 for the installation of the unit. And it runs on a 240 volt line, which I had to have run from my electric box over to here. There's the connect. So that connects to my electric box, and this connects to the heater. And that was $560. And I think I got, at the time, I got a $500 rebate from Belmont Light for doing. It's a hot water heat pump, pretty simple. Provides us with, it's 66 gallons, and there are only 2 of us in the house. It provides us with more than enough hot water for our needs. So it would probably be big enough for a 3-person house. If you had 4 and you had some teenagers in your house, you might want to get the 80-gallon unit, which is the next one bigger. This is a State Street, which is one of the big tank water heater manufacturers. Rheem is another one that they sell at Home Depot. That's about it. So anybody have any
Roger,
questions? Yeah,
there's a
sure.
few from the chat. How many amps and what is the monthly operating cost?
Yeah, I don't know. I have not seen, when I put this in, I did not see a huge jump in my electric bill. So I think the energy costs are not very great, and it runs on 20 amps.
Yeah,
And-
I can say, I've also got a heat pump water heater, and it uses like a few kilowatt hours per day. So, so maybe 50 cents a day, something like that. So it's
Yeah,
really,
actually, let me go check on the what the breaker is for this. It can't be 20. It must be
I think
more
it's
than
30,
that.
I think it might be 30 amps, Roger.
Yeah, okay. I think well, hang on.
And then somebody asked, Phil asked if it's too cold in the basement, couldn't you just switch the mode from heat pump to electric? And yes, so these are hybrid electric water heaters. And so you can run it in just heat pump mode, but you can also run it in direct resistance electric mode if you want. So if you feel like your basement's too cold in February, you can just switch it to be kind of like a dopey resistance electric water heater.
30 amps was the correct answer.
And so it was $2,600 was the cost, is that right, installed? And
Yes,
then what does
installed,
that compare, just curious, to compared to a gas water heater? Did you get a recent quote?
The last one that I had done, I think, was about 1,800 or 1,900
Okay.
installed.
Yep.
And the reason we did this was to get rid of one more gas utility that was in the house.
Absolutely.
And it's worked really well. So, it's also, it was installed in January 2019, so it's about 3.5 years old. And from when we had it installed, we haven't done anything to it. So it's been fine.
Great.
All right, thanks, Roger.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Claus.
Yeah, Klaus.
Could I ask a question of Roger?
Yes.
Please.
So you're extracting heat from the air in your basement. In the summer, would it be possible to vent a pipe to the outside where the air might be, 80 or 90 degrees hotter than it is in your basement, and use that hot air, which it seems would have the effect of lowering your bill because there's more heat to extract from the outdoor air if it's warmer than the indoor air. And also, to the extent that it's a negative, would prevent your basement from being chilled.
Yeah, well, the chilling in the summer is what I want. So it's the winter chilling that
Right.
it doesn't make much difference. So in the summer, it's kind of comfortable down here, and the dehumidifying also is a benefit. It takes the moisture out of the air. So it sounds like it makes sense, but I don't know, and I've never heard of anybody doing it.
I'd say it's a good idea. I'd say that without doing that, my water heater uses 2 or 3 kilowatt hours per day, and so it's not really worth trying to bump up that efficiency. I mean, that's such a tiny electric usage as it is, that the complexity of trying to vent out to the outside, it would be not really worth it.
Yeah, no, thanks. And if I could, one other question, which maybe is not on the agenda tonight, but I'm curious if anybody has experience with radiant heating. I assume since this is all potable water, you wouldn't use this to run a radiant heating system. I think that's a different type of setup. But has anyone got experience with using a heat pump to heat a hydronic radiant system?
Yeah, that's what Barry was asking, I think, about, using a heat pump to replace a gas furnace. And I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know, how hot does the water get in a hydronic system?
I think that it's in the like 110 range. Obviously, it depends on how extensive, if every floor of your house has got the tubes running through it, you don't need the water to be very hot at all. On the other hand, if you've just got that system in a few rooms and you're trying to heat a larger space, then you would need to, to make the water
Yeah.
hotter, because that excess heat would need to diffuse into adjacent space.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we have a system that adjusts the temperature to which the boiler heats the water based on the outdoor temperature and the differential, and it's it will start as low as probably about 100, and then in the very cold parts of the winter, so when it's below zero outside, it might try to heat up to 140, and that's where I'm particularly concerned about the ability of a heat pump to sort of get you to where you'd need to go.
Mhm.
On the other hand, it tends to work more efficiently if you have it operating more continuously at a lower temperature. So, much of the time in the winter probably is heating only to about 110 or thereabouts.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, Klaus, do you want to talk about your setup?
I haven't actually seen Klaus.
Klaus here.
Hopefully he is.
Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to lawn equipment and snow blowing. So yeah, so Francesca, Brian, right? Want to talk about?
Yeah. How do we get my screen up here? Well, I don't know if you can see me now, but I quickly wanted to give a quick summary of on lawnmowers. And John Coulterman and I did a quick video of about a minute. I'll just show that to you. I think that's maybe helpful to show the image. His is an 80 volt, and I just bought an Ryobi 40 volt, and his, it's not surprisingly, when you go up in power, cost $500 at Turf Equipment, and mine cost $290 at Home Depot last week. It's my second one. The first one lasted for about 8 or 9 years. It was a Black & Decker 36 volt. They are, to me, they are just as equal in terms of their power relative to gas powered mowers, and I strongly recommend them. And they're really quite quiet. And so I've got in the round numbers, they charge in about an hour. They're really quite simple to operate. You literally, plug the battery in, close the lid, and pull the lever, and off you go. Run time is round numbers 45 minutes. So they're pretty effective little machines. And I'll just show you this share sound. There's that, and here's
So how do you run this thing? Let's see you do it.
Can you all see that?
That's simple. That's simple. So you push a button, and away you go. Pretty quiet little machine.
Yeah. It's also nice. Sometimes there's not enough. If there's not any dew on the lawn,
Yep.
you want to get going earlier in the day without really bothering neighbors. You can.
Right. All right. And then when you're done with your mow, then you just what? You let go the brake, the safety brake, and she's all done.
That's
Okay.
it. That's it.
So, and is it comparable, would you say, on the power to a gas mower from the old days? If you're
I would say absolutely. Yeah. This one, maybe the first gen wasn't, but this guy certainly is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, if I'm away for a couple weeks and come back,
you do this lawn and no problem.
not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Easy enough.
That's awesome. And again, literally, maintenance, you probably would just do sharpening the blades every once in a while,
That's it.
and then that's about it, really.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And keep that baby charged. Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
All right,
It's easy
John.
enough.
Thank you so much.
Highly recommend.
Okay. So his last words were highly recommend. Francesca, did you want to add about mowers or?
Not about mowers, but we have a corded electric leaf blower and also a cordless weed whacker. I don't know if I can turn my camera around, but this is the corded leaf blower, and it's a Toro, which is about they're a lot less expensive than cordless ones, which are more likely to be rebated, I think, by Belmont Light. The corded yard equipment is not, but it works just as well, and it also you don't have to worry about charging it or anything, and it's pretty quiet. It's a lot quieter than gas leaf blowers. I don't know, you can blow some dirt around if you want.
Yeah, I'll demonstrate full throttle and the sound that it makes. You can blow a lot of stuff around, and you know, most of the sound that's produced is from the fan and not from like a big gas engine. So that's pretty fantastic, and it's not heavy to carry around. You just have this, and you know, you can string together a bunch of extension cords, and then you're all set. I think we've had this for almost 10 years, if not more, and it's served us incredibly well.
And it's compatible with a typical electrical socket at your house.
Just regular 3-prong.
Or it's 2-prong actually.
Oh, it's 2-prong. Oh my, it is 2-prong. Holy cow. Even better.
Yep. And then we also have, I know this wasn't in like the program, but we also have a cordless weed whacker that
yeah, so we got this recently, and this has been terrific. So obviously the big virtue is that you don't need to have an extension cord connected to it. I've been using this around the yard and for the last couple of weeks, and haven't had to recharge it. So the battery gives you plenty of life for sort of typical use and going at the weeds at the edge of the yard and so forth. So it's been great. And it also, as you might imagine, is quiet. And again, compared to the corded version, it's nice because you don't have to worry about the extension cords. I think that's it.
And I guess I'm just reading about mulching leaves with lawnmowers, and I've not done that myself. I mean, I run my mower over whatever's there, but I clearly use a rake to mow, you know, to rake up the leaves in fall. So I don't really have an answer, but I could get back to you next fall. And I guess one other last demonstration is on snow blowers, unless there's any other questions about lawn material. Okay. And that is a snow blower. So we have a Toro, and it's a 60-volt Toro that I got at Home Depot again, and they delivered it installed and ready to go. And I'll just give you this quick 2-minute demonstration and see where this goes.
And this is a battery-powered snowblower. Hi, John. Good to see you.
Hey, Brian.
And so we've got a Toro that I had delivered in December of 2020. So it's had 2 full seasons. We got it from the Home Depot. They delivered it all assembled. And it's very simple. This battery, 60-volt battery, charges up at home. And you come right out here, and I'll just show you. You literally plug it into the battery holder, click it, close that. And there's no fuel settings or anything. Obviously, it's all battery powered. Safety down, press the button, and it's off to races.
Wow.
So it's super easy, and very lightweight. I'm gonna come closer. So this driveway of ours is about 100 feet. And so we did passes, probably 2 passes, to get a 1 foot storm and probably 3 passes to do the 2 foot storm. Let go and the safety's off, power it off.
Very easy. It's got
So it
lights,
has-
you can do it in
it has
dark. and-
lights, you can do it at night, which, you know, some of these storms, it's really quite simple. I mean, you do have to probably do 2 or 3 passes to
Right.
get a big storm. But it's got an adjuster, so you know it's very simple to twist the direction of the snow, and then you can angle it, you know, depending on where you need to
Right,
aim the
right.
snow as it goes.
Wow, it's very nice. And it's also very quiet. I mean,
Very quiet and super to start up. Literally, boom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
2 seconds and you're off to the races, and then just let it go. Very simple to operate.
yeah. And I
no-
like how quiet it is. I mean, you often get out early in the morning and
Right.
you don't want to be out there with waking up the neighbors at 5:30 or
No,
whatever.
Exactly.
But you got to get going.
And it's covered us every one of the storms of the last 2 seasons. So I think for Belmont purposes, you know, we've got a 100-foot driveway. This thing
Yeah.
is plenty good, and I'm sure it'll last for several seasons.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome, Brian. Well,
I
thanks.
think relatively modest expense. I think it was round numbers, $300, something like that. No gas charges. Obviously, you got to charge it up with battery from power from the Belmont Light, but
Right.
off to the races.
But
Okay.
pretty much zero maintenance.
Zero maintenance.
Okay. Any questions about that? Or as I said, it's lightweight. It weighs about 55 pounds, and it can throw snow about 40 feet in the air. So it really, you know, and you can adjust the angle so that it can shoot it way high and clear a fence or straight over to the left or right. Probably takes a couple, 3 hours to charge it up again. So, you know, as it's snowing and piling up a second time, you're charging it another time, or you could obviously have another battery pack in storage as a backup. So found it to be a pretty amazing little engine. So hope that's helpful. And then I'll pass it on. Marty, who's next?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I think I'll talk about induction stoves now. So I'm in my kitchen and standing in front of my induction stovetop. So the way these work is this is all electric, and you can see the top is just, you know, kind of this glass. And sometimes people, when they see these, they confuse it with a radiant electric stove, but this one works different. And the way it works is it actually uses a magnetic field to transmit energy to your pots and heat them up. And so one of the interesting things about this is that your pots need to be magnetic. So I've stolen my kid's magnet here. And so you see this pan I have here is magnetic. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. And let's see. Okay, and if I'm quiet, you should hear a little bit of a buzz. And that's so this is, again, what's cool about this is that it's very efficient in transmitting energy from the stovetop to your cookware, because it's not actually heating up the heating element in the stovetop. And you can see that this is on, but I've just got my hand right next to the pot, and it's not hot at all, because the surface glass of this stovetop doesn't actually get hot. Instead, that your pan heats up directly because of the magnetic energy passing to it. And so that's pretty neat, both for a sort of a safety thing, right? Because like if you have kids and they touch the stovetop, it's really impossible to burn yourself on one of these. And the other thing is, it's nice about this is that you can really control the heating to a fine grain level. In fact, there's more and more professional chefs prefer cooking with induction stovetops, because you can just dial it in exactly what you need, right? Like if you need a setting of a 4 and to cook a particular sauce, it's reproducible. It's exactly
the same every single time. So, and you know, some people think like cooking with gas, they have a real affinity to that, including my wife. Like she loved, you know, she's a big cook and loved cooking with gas, but and was a little skeptical about making the switch, but has been very enthusiastic about the change, and so it's been great. And so this requires a 50 amp circuit, and so when we made the switch, we had an electric oven, so we already had the wiring there, but that's one sort of practical consideration to all of this, as well as the cookware. So I'd say about 75% of our existing pots and pans were magnetic, and so we can just reuse those. But we did have to replace a few. And so, you know, if you wanted to make the switch, it's probably worth doing a census on your existing pots and pans to see, you know, to see what you got. All right, and then I'll, with that, is Klaus on now, or yeah, Brian, you're muted.
Sorry, just what was the cost of the system? And
yeah, so this one, so we were pretty highly constrained when we made a choice, because the space here is 36 inches wide, so there were literally 3 to choose from, and so this is a Fisher and Paykel, and it was this one was around 7,500, I think. But if you have like a more compact, like 30-inch space, there's a lot more options. Like and there too, they sell these separate. We also had to buy the full range, the oven and the cooktop, but they sell just separate cooktops too, if your kitchen's arranged like that. Yeah, so ours was kind of on the high end, but there's
Marty?
a wide range.
Yeah, Marty, we have one that's 30 inches, and about 3 years ago when we bought it, it was 20, it's a GE profile, and it was 2,500. So that's a normal size stove.
Yeah.
30 inches is a typical size stove, you know, and they're wonderful. They're, we like it better than the gas. It really has a lot of features that are nicer. One of the features is if you're boiling a pot of water and you take it off the burner goes off automatically if there's nothing on top of it.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing is it boils water so fast. It's still shocking to me. We've had this for a year, but it's you know, sometimes I'll walk away and then I forget that the water is going to be boiling in literally 2 minutes. So it's that efficient. It's really been great.
Did you have to get rid of all your old pots?
No, we kept I'd say like 3/4 of them were magnetic, and we were just fine. So we only had to replace you know, maybe 2 or 3.
So if you have cast iron pots, they're fine. If you have cast iron coated with enamel, that's fine. Stainless steel, some of them are magnetic and some of them aren't, depending on what the mix of the metals is. But you need a pot that has some iron in it, basically. So aluminum won't work, copper won't work.
Right.
Yep. All right, and has Klaus joined us?
Yep.
Okay, Klaus is here. So I guess you want to talk about your, well, in whatever order you want, your EV charger and your water heater.
Yeah. So can you also? Good. So I want to put in a pitch for solar hot water. You know, when you have a solar panel that makes electricity, it's tuned to a certain frequency, and photons that have less energy are wasted, and photons that have more energy can only give you the amount of energy to which the panel is tuned. And that means that there is some limits to how efficient a solar PV panel can be. So the most efficient panels you can purchase today, I think about 22% conversion, but most of them are in the upper are in the upper teens. Now, if you just want to heat something, on the other hand, that's what a solar hot water panel will do. It captures a very broad range of energy from the sun, and it has an efficiency rating well over 80%. So, 4 times as much of the energy in the sunlight gets used. And for a typical household that uses electricity to heat water, a third of the or more of the electricity bill is just that, because it takes a lot of energy to heat water. So solar hot water, what it does is that you run a heat exchange medium up through the panels. Typically, you have 2 or 3 of them, and then it comes back down, and you have a tank. And I'm sorry, I wanted to stand in front of the tank, but I couldn't get out of work in time. So I'm at work, and we don't have a tank that will stand in. But what you do is you have a fairly big tank. Mine is 120 gallons, and then the solar hot water, that exchange medium, comes in at the bottom and heats the entire column. You also have electricity, but that only heats the top 1/3. So that's pretty clever. So you'll heat just the water that you're going to need. But then when you have solar energy available, it heats the entire tank. And that actually is a 20 to 30 kilowatt hour battery, depending on how big your tank is. So it's a really great return, and they're not expensive to put in. I think ours was $6,000 or something like that. So the return on investment there beats pretty much anything that you've got. So absolutely love this solar hot water. We've had ours for almost 10 years, and there's really no maintenance. There's a little pump that circulates in a controlling unit, but we've done nothing to it for all this time. Any questions about solar hot water?
Klaus, is it a separate install from your otherwise PV solar on your roof for your home electricity?
It's just, it looks just like solar panels. Yep. You just put them up there, and it has the other benefit is it's entirely inside your house, so you don't have to have any deals with any utilities. You just put them in, it's your call. And you don't have to ask anyone for permission. There are no fees paid or any sort of political or tax implications. It's just very, very simple to do. So absolutely love it. And our install gives us all of the hot water we need for 9 months of the year. And then in the dead of winter, it takes the water that's coming in at 40 Fahrenheit and heats it to about 75. And then we use the electricity to bump it up to what my wife finds an acceptable amount of heat. But if it were just me, I'd be happy. I think you're actually with that, and all of that for for what is a single-digit number of thousands of dollars. I think it's just great value to do. One thing is that there's pretty much one installer, New England Solar Hot Water. And they did a good job for me, but it's not going to be that easy, I think, to find competitive bits.
What's the expected life?
Where is the tank
system?
The tank is in the basement, and it's. I think it had a 20-year life on it. It's just like another water tank. Yeah. So
the panels will run probably 30 years or more, just like any other solar panel. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see people who had hot water installed sometimes. There's one on Trapello Road, and I talked to the owner of those panels because they sort of stick out at an angle. They must have been put in before there was zoning around these things, and they just keep running because there isn't a whole lot of sophistication in this. You could probably do this with just a black garden hose and running it through. Right, all you're doing is you have something dark in a vacuum that the sun warms up, and then you just run a fluid through. So it's just as basic as it can get, but it works really well. And it works in the dead of winter. Water coming down from up there can be 120 Fahrenheit, and in the summer it can be 300 Fahrenheit. It gets really hot.
So on a winter night, do you have to shut it off, or I guess that automatically happens?
It's all automatic, and the tank. My tank is 120 gallons. I get as big a tank as you can get, but 120 gallons, even in a 4-person household with 2 teenagers, that'll last you quite a while. So my only other advice would be to get a timer. We have a timer on it, so for time of use charging, just so when in the winter you draw electricity, that you can make sure that you don't draw that automation doesn't kick in the middle of the peak period.
What are the dimensions of the panel?
They are just like a solar panel. I don't know. They're the same
Typically
size.
3 by 5. Typically 3 by 5.
Probably.
Yeah.
And a lot of households have 2 or 3. We got 4 actually because of aesthetics. So it looked better. A certain member of my household felt, and it wasn't a lot of extra investment. And that, but having that over capacity, of course, helps us in the winter time. But it would have been more cost effective just to do 3 or 2.
And did you make a perforation in the roof for the tubing, or did you come around to the edge of the roof and go wrap around, or how did you connect?
It just went down and around, and then there was a hole drilled in through the wood underneath the awning, so the roof comes out a bit, and so there was a hole drilled in with where the isolated tube goes in to the water tank. Yeah, it all looks very nice, and I would also get a guard on it. We didn't in time, and so the squirrels thought it was nice to be up there in the wintertime, and I was worried that they would chew through something. So we added on a critter guard. But anyway, the short of the long is it's very simple. Great return on investment, and also if there's a power outage, you'll have hot water, so that ought to make you popular with the neighbors.
And back to the question I was asking earlier, do you know anybody who's using that system for radiant hydronic heating of their house?
No, but I saw a video on it at some point where someone had done a basic version of it with a long tube. They were in some rural area, and the air that it was going down a hill, and it would heat the air, and then it would come up to their heat pump, so that the heat pump didn't have to struggle against cold air. So that was sort of the closest thing I've seen to it. But in principle, you should be able to do floor heating.
Thanks.
Hey, Klaus, I'm just in interest of time. It's 8:02. You want to shift over to EVs and solar?
Yeah. So can I tell you how much I'm loving my EV at the moment? Every time I drive past the gas station, we have a Chevy Bolt, which is just a terrific car. It's about $33,000, I think, today. Unfortunately, GM has exhausted their tax rebate, so that's the price. But it's got a 60 kilowatt hour battery. It's been completely effortless, and we can charge it from our solar PV. So you can either think of that as a sunk cost and think of it as free fuel, or you can think of it as we can sell power back to the city. Since I'm on time of use, that's 6 cents per kilowatt hour, and at that price, and given the today's gas prices, it comes out on a dollar basis to more than 200 miles per gallon equivalent. And the Bolt is not a boring car to drive. It's a fun, zippy car. So EVs are just terrific. When you look at the gas price issue, it's easy to giggle, but there's actually a bunch of other benefits if you consider all the other expenses like oil changes or catalytic converters that break or get stolen, timing belts, oxygen sensors, all sorts of things that cost money with a gas car. None of that is in an EV. And the little booklet that comes with the bowl tells you when to go for a service checkup. And I think it's at 125,000 miles, maybe it's 150,000 miles, but it's just outlandish, right? When you compare to a gas car, where you need to bring it in much more frequently for all sorts of things, because because explosion motors are just overly complex. So there's a lot to love from an economics point of view, and then of course there's a reason why 90-some% of people who have EVs say they'll never go back to there's a reason why 90-some% of people who have EVs say they'll never go back to explosion motors. The EVs are just fun to drive. They're extremely quiet and zippy, just easy to live with. And they have a flat floor, so you have more comfort in the back seat, and there's just almost no drawbacks. And I think the number one thing that people worry about is range anxiety, but I really don't think that's an issue with a car like the Bolt, where we go 250 miles. I mean, at my age, if I go 250 miles, then I need to make a stop. And by the time you're out there and you've had something to eat and so on, 20-30 minutes have passed, and then the car is 80% charged and you're ready to go. So in practical terms, having an EV today or having a gas car when you go on road trips, it's really does make a difference. Any questions?
I think there was some question about range, and I just, on my experience with a Bolt in winter, it was, with the heat on, it is a drag on range. I don't think there's any question that it goes down round numbers to about 170 miles in my experience, but maybe yours. And I always wore a sleeping bag, and I just took it as a badge of pride and a wool hat. But the seat heater is pretty impressive in its efficiency.
Yeah. So I think it's a great point to raise. So when you go into an electric car, there are a couple of things that you just need to learn to do differently. And some people hate that, but for instance, the seat heaters have 3 steps, like in most cars, and they consume 15, 30, and 45 watts. So 4 or 5. The heater that heats the entire car uses 4,500 watts. So when you use the seat heater, I have this fleece with built-in heating, which I got from my motorcycle. So I plug that in, that's 100 watts. If you can use something like that, you're in great shape, and that'll really help you with your winter range. But it is true, you do get hit. Actually, so do gas cars. You just don't notice because they're so wasteful. But gas cars also don't drive as far on a gallon of gas in the wintertime. But just remember that if you go to 170 miles, I mean, how often do you actually drive more than 170 miles? It's just and you might have to spend a little time then charging. Let's say that you're doing 220 miles in the winter, you'll have to stop and charge. But in my case, I'd have to stop anyway. I'd want also to get something to eat and so on. But 2, when you plug in your car at home, it just takes 2 seconds, as opposed to going to the gas station and touching that dirty COVID-infected handle and so on. And so when you add up all the savings you've had in time during your sort of everyday ownership of the car, it more than covers whatever little extra time you might be needing on your trips. So I think where we are with EVs today is that they are on par with gas cars in every aspect and superior in most, with the exception of cost. They're still more expensive.
But maybe that's a life cycle analysis too, right? I mean,
that is very true,
right? I mean, you're essentially paying up for that technology to spread the cost over the life of the vehicle, and I think that's important, as opposed to paying for gas, which has been
that's a really important. That's a really important point, because there's really no maintenance cost, and if you go 4 miles on a kilowatt hour, and that kilowatt hour is 6 cents, then it's 1.5 cents per mile. I mean, can you imagine? So when you drive 12,000 miles a year, like the typical American, then that's 18,000 cents, right? So that's $180 in fuel for the entire year. I'll
Well,
repeat
certainly-
that. $15 per month for the entire, I mean, $15 per month in fuel. And that's if you go 12,000 miles. I don't go anywhere near that. So fuel is so cheap, and that the savings, against a gas car is such that it'll pay for at least half of the lease cost of getting a boat. And in New York City, they had a report released not so long ago where they compared I think it was the Ford Fiesta gas car to the Chevy Bolt, same dimensions roughly. And the annual cost of maintenance for the Bolt was $280, I think. And the annual cost for the Fiesta was $1,840, I think. So it's just a big. It's simpler. It's cheaper. It's cleaner. It's just nowhere. There's not a single place, I think, where the gas car beats an electric car today.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sold.
Thank you.
Klaus.
Thank you, Klaus. And they're fast as heck.
Yeah, they're fun.
They're fun. They're fun to drive. Yep.
But
All
certainly
right, Marty.
brakes and
Yeah, well-
tires wear out at the same speed as on a.
Well, not really, because
No.
you don't use the brakes very much because you motor brake. So you use the brakes so little that that some of the new electric cars have drum brakes on the rear. That's so when you get off the gas in electric cars, you can usually switch between two types of motor braking. One that resembles an old-fashioned car with an explosion motor, where you sort of glide for long, and others where as soon as you take your foot sort of progressively off the speeder, then the motor brakes harder and harder and harder. So you drive with just one foot, which is great. Once you get used to that, you're gonna love it. But what that means is that you don't use the brakes very, very much. And so people, you regularly read about people who have electric cars who go 200,000 miles and they still have their original brake pads.
I see.
And all of that braking is transmitted into energy, which goes back to feed into the battery. And so it's a net positive to the experience and the car's life and its range, is what I mean to say. So very important component. The one dangerous thing is is to go from 1 foot driving, in my experience, and then stepping into a gas car and you're like, whoa, I forgot, I got to actually hit the brakes. And so you just got to be a little mindful of that, but that's a minor problem, I think.
And I think one thing is when you get your home charger, I would make sure to get one that can follow your solar panel production. So that's just a nice convenience with, say, the juice box, that you can adjust the charging rate so that you're consuming your own solar pretty precisely, because Belmont Light doesn't give you the same amount of money for a kilowatt hour that you sell as you have to pay to purchase it. So the best economics for your EV and for your solar installation is when you can consume your own power.
Cool. And with that Belmont Light plug, Marty, we should, in the interest of time, we should hand it over.
Yeah. So now we'll give Belmont Light folks a chance to describe the rebates for all these wonderful technologies. So, Aiden, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I'll go, Aiden Leary, Communications Coordinator at Belmont Light. I'll go quickly through just some of our rebates that we have, and we can get to the questions and answers after. Just a reminder as we're going through that all of this information and more is on belmontlight.com. Just want to give a quick overview of all of our programs and offerings, and I highlighted some of the ones that we've talked about tonight, but you see there's a lot more that we haven't covered, and including commercial programs as well. So first, just wanted to talk about our heat pump program. As Marty discussed, we had a Heat Smart program a couple years ago, and out of that came a more robust heat pump rebate program. We've partnered with Abode Energy Management, and what they do is provide technical support for customers and for us sometimes as well. So if you are thinking of installing a heat pump, first step I would suggest is go to our website. There's a link there to talk with a heat pump specialist from Abode. They're a independent company, not trying to sell you anything, and they're agnostic to everything. We do have, Abode does maintain a qualified installers list, a contractors list, people that they've vetted who have gone through a process to to kind of prove their knowledge and know-how to do installations. So we have that. You can access that from our site as well, and you can access an online calendar there to set up a time with this, the heat pump specialist there. And just kind of was talked about by Marty for heat pump rebates, why we're promoting them is just because of they are more obviously more efficient than window AC units, and there's a ton more that we could get into, but and some of the requirements that we have are that the heat pumps installed to get a rebate do need to meet NEEP's cold climate air source heat pump specifications. And to go over some of our rebates right now, as you'll see, for non-gas, this is up against the Mass Save rebate. And just wanted to keep moving on to our appliance rebate program, and this is where a lot of the things that we talked about, like the induction stove that Marty showed us, the heat pump, water heater, and anything like that would come into play. You'll see here we rebate anything from a refrigerator down, and the requirements for the appliance rebate program are that it's an Energy Star rated appliance.
Aiden, could you just go back, sorry, one slide before, just to highlight the rebate on, so it was cap of $5,000.
Yeah.
What does that mean, non-gas versus gas, just briefly?
Yeah, sorry, 1 second. I believe it's going from a gas system to an oil system.
I see.
So
if it's an oil system, it's a $5,000 rebate, and if it's a gas system, it's $2,500.
Exactly.
Okay, great. That's all. I just wanted to highlight that. I think that's the most important part of that slide.
Sure, and also just note that we do have a couple adders at the bottom here, at the bottom two rows. We do give an extra adder to customers on our low income rate and the small municipal rate as well. And then on another adder, if you do take out your fossil fuel system and just kind of go with the whole home heat pump system, there's another adder for that.
Aiden, there's a question, is for the heat pump rebate, can we apply for both Mass Save and Belmont Light same time?
That's, I
would think the answer is no, but.
Yeah, I believe, I don't actually know the answer. I apologize if our energy specialist is under the weather tonight. So we'll have contact information at the end here that you can find more information on that. Let's move on back to the appliance rebates. And then, as I said, so this is everything from refrigerators to induction stoves. We also, as you can see, a lot of the controllers that control HVAC systems, we are rebating, as well as the heat pump water heaters that Roger showed us. And moving on to the cordless yard equipment that Brian and Francesca showed us. This is actually open to both residential and commercial customers, although it needs to be tied to a current account. And we'll give you a rebate of up to 50% of the total costs, there is a requirement to provide the receipt for the item. And as Marty was talking about the EV charger rebate a little bit, we do up to a $250 per charger, and this is off of a level 2 charger with Wi-Fi enabled, and that currently is just only for residential installations. And you'll see the models that are Wi-Fi enabled here that we accept. And then just moving quickly off of the rebates that we have, the technologies that we talked about before. We have a program called Connected Homes through the Next Zero. And what this is, it's a demand response program. If you are able to connect your, from this list of devices, if you're able to connect them via Wi-Fi and agree to make small adjustments during monthly transmission and annual capacity peaks, you'll see here a list of incentives. We rebate for battery systems, EV chargers, electric hot water heaters, and then as I said before, we have the mini split controller systems, and also Wi-Fi thermostats like Nest and Honeywell.
And Aidan, I'm just getting a question. Are snowblowers available for a rebate?
Not currently. It's definitely something that we've looked into. We haven't been able to quite make it happen yet. And we've actually been talking with other municipal light plants around about how I don't know of any that currently do, but it's something that we've been working on as a large group. So hopefully at some point, but nothing to report right now. Okay, and then just moving quickly to our battery storage system incentive program. This is a $500 rebate for that's straight up no grading, anything like that. Has to be installed in a residential address, and it doesn't have to be connected to a solar system. You can install it and charge it off the grid. And with that, there is a interconnection application, just as you do for a solar array on your home. That's a requirement as well. And then the last thing I wanted to just cover was our weatherization rebate. As we're talking about heat pumps and everything, one of the best ways to utilize them is to weatherize your home. So we rebate up to 75% of the cost, up to $1,000 for installation, and $500 for air sealing and ductwork. And this does require a home energy assessment within the last 3 years. I would actually recommend a home energy assessment before doing any projects to your home, especially with energy. So, but with that is it from what I have.
Thanks a lot, Aidan. And I guess at this point we can open it up for a general Q&A for any questions folks have that didn't get answered along the way. Brian.
Aidan, do you know by chance if the insulation rebate changes if you take down your walls to put in insulation versus like just blowing it in through a hole? Do you know if that matters for rebates?
I don't believe that matters.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to check with our energy specialist.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask one more, since this will be it for me. So at the beginning, I think Marty said Belmont Light, as of 2022, is 100% renewable electricity. So you don't have to opt into a special program or something. That's everybody. Everybody on Belmont Light is 100% as of this year renewable.
Yep. Yeah, I can. We won't be able to kind of, realize that until next year, 2023. Our energy contracts are kind of done about 6 months in arrears. So we won't really know, but that is what we're working towards for the end of this year, is sourcing from renewable energy, from renewable energy projects, and also purchasing renewable energy credits.
Great, thanks.
So
I have a question. I don't know if you guys, I think I am muted.
Yeah, I can hear you, Rita. Yeah.
I put a Mitsubishi system into my home back at the last energy crisis, and they were relatively new to the market. So I have 4 heads in my home. It doesn't do the whole house. And back then it would only go to 25. So the question I have is, can that system be upgraded to be able to go down to a lower temperature so it could be used year round? Or would that have to be a total new system? I don't know if anybody knows about old versus new heat pump systems. So that at that time, it was kind of the state of the art. So it's probably 12, maybe 15 years old. Whenever the last time oil went to $4 a gallon, when we put it in. So we dared to go into with, new technology, but obviously it works for shoulder months, but when it's really cold, you have to switch back to oil.
So I don't know this for sure, but I think that the key element in being able to work down to low temperatures is the outdoor condenser unit. And because the indoor units they're basically just heat exchangers within the house. So I think, and I suspect that it's the outdoor unit where the kind of improvements that you need to be able to work down to low temperatures are. So I would wager that you could potentially replace the outdoor unit, and as so long as that can still connect to the indoor units, which is probably also seemingly likely since it's just really running like refrigerant lines to those, then that should be able to be patched together. But it's something to check with an installer, of course.
And my only other question is, I do have central AC. So you did make the comment earlier that central AC duct could potentially be used. So has anybody done that? Have you heard of anybody doing it, and how efficient is it? Because I thought I heard that the ductwork size may not be correct to try to convert it to a heating system versus just pure AC. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if anybody knows. Has anybody converted an AC system over to heat pump system that obviously is already, ductwork is already in place?
I know, so there's somebody on the energy committee, James Booth, who's not here tonight, but I know he has a ducted heat pump system. I don't know the details of his ductwork, but I'm going to post from our website a way to get in touch with us. And you can, if you send us an email, then we can put you in touch with James, and he can let you know what he did.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because that seemed like it would be maybe the better solution because all the ductwork's in place. But I don't know whether that really works, whether it's a one-to-one exchange, take out the unit and put something that's heat pump and AC at the same time. So,
Rita, that Belmont Light has this company that they're contracted with, Abode, which has people who are expert in this. So it probably is worth a conversation with one of those people with these kind of questions.
okay, yeah, because you guys mentioned that earlier, so I said, oh, maybe that, because I was going to start calling these companies, but then you're kind of like it's a free for all. I'm probably gonna
but Belmont Light essentially is offering you a consultant to talk to before you talk to the company.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. So your presentation is timely because I was struggling with both options and which one's actually and which one may actually work. I don't know. So that's kind of,
Yeah, Abode, as Roger said, Abode can help you in both situations. They can either take you from the start and talk you through everything you need to talk about. Or if you have a couple quotes, you can go back to them and say, okay, I have these quotes now. What do I do? What do they mean? And compare.
Okay. Thank you.
And Rita, I posted the link to the Belmont Light heat pump rebates, and there's information about getting in touch with the heat pump specialist at Abode at that website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. 8:30, Marty, shall we?
Yeah, I think, yes, it's been great. So I thank you everyone for attending. Thanks a lot for Belmont Light staff, Aiden, for staying up late, extending your day. Really appreciate all this.
Absolutely.
And if anything comes up again, there's posted ways to get in touch with all of us who presented tonight through the Energy Committee website.
And Marty, I'll just add, I'm going to, this, as I said, this was recorded. So we'll post it on the Belmont Light YouTube account. And we'll share it around with the Energy Committee to make sure that it gets posted in several places.
Cool. Maybe Greg can post it as well on a link on our website. So
yeah, we can do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Aiden. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Good night.